Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets. Take your profit. Find out how. Go to PropSwap.com. Download the Prop Swap app today. Hey, Joe in Cape May Courthouse. Congratulations, Joe. What do you know? You are qualified for a chance to pick your trip at our Eagles Draft Party show coming up on April 28th, which is a Thursday, same day as Game 6 of the Sixers. Terrible scheduling there by the NBA. But, Joe, you have a chance to win a Eagles road trip this year. You pick the game, we'll pay for the airfare, hotel, the pregame tailgate party, and give the winner 2 tickets to the Eagles road game of your choice. Joe, you have a chance to be that winner. We have another chance coming up at 4:55 today. Listen for your chance to win. Geoff Mosher is here from InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast. Geoff Mosher, how are you, friend?
I'm great. How are you, Mike?
Doing well. We saw today, we'll start off with some Eagles news as Steven Nelson has signed away. Now 2/3 of their starting secondary is gone. Nelson signed a 2-year, $10 million deal, and he is in Houston. We touched on this the other day. They weren't going to bring him back, but really now accentuates. Does it kind of fire off a plan in your mind about, all right, they let Nelson walk, that cornerback becomes even more of a clear pick?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be. I really don't like when you leave yourself in a situation where you have to draft somebody early. I mean, the Eagles should anyway because of years of neglect at that position, and they're likely to, but you never know. You could draft a guy and he gets, a freak accident and gets hurt, can't even make it to OTAs. You never know. So you want to have somebody on your team that can be that corner opposite Darius Slay who can play and has proven he can play a little bit in the league. Forget, having a superstar. You're just looking for a placeholder, somebody who can play. Steven Nelson was that last year. I think the Texans make a lot of sense because I imagine that Lovie Smith, who has always played a Tampa 2 style defense, will continue to play that in Houston as a head coach there, and that's going to give Steven Nelson a lot of protection up top. We talked about the issues that he had with the Eagles defense last year. They had to come out of the 2 deep. They had to play more man defense. They had to play 1 safety deep, and that 1 safety wound up playing very deep to protect Nelson, and they didn't blitz as much also. So, but they're in the same situation where there are cornerbacks out there. There's Steph Gilmore, there is Joe Hayden, there's Trey Waynes. I mean, you can go look at Bryce Callahan. There's a caliber of corner out there that's probably equivalent to what you got from Steven Nelson, and eventually they'll probably have to bring one in. But I just don't like going into the draft without having that guy just because it makes it feel like you have to force yourself to take it.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up, is last year they were able to not draft. They took McPherson in the 4th round, and we're like, all right, they didn't take a corner until round 4. They got to do something. They finally went with Nelson, and I guess if they don't take a receiver in the first 2 or 3 rounds, there are some guys that you can, maybe pick up the phone and call still then.
Yeah, and same thing with pass rush. Well, more so receiver. That's another position where you'll find bodies who can play out on the open market. How much of an impact they'll make is a big question mark, but at least somebody who can, fill a role while you're trying to groom someone else. But, now that I kind of talk myself into it, maybe this is the Eagles' kind of way of forcing themselves to take a player at a position that they haven't taken in a long time. Maybe this is the signal that they sent to. It's almost like when you're on vices, so you safeguard against them, and you say, hey, if I don't sign a cornerback right now, I'm definitely drafting one in the 1st or 2nd round, where ordinarily if I did sign one, maybe I'd be tempted to say, I can get by one more year without it, for the 20th straight year or whatever it is.
Yeah, well, I know we discussed before that they have a plethora of corners on the roster, none of which excite anybody.
No, and I know that Nick Sirianni at the Combine, tried to do his best to say, hey, we've got, a lot of candidates here, and he went through not only McPherson, but also the Tay Gowans of the world, the Mac McCains, who else did that? Kerry Vincent, all those darts that they threw and small little deals that they made to bring in, corners who you hope one hits, but you can't
After
can't guarantee that.
After 1 year, what do they think of McPherson?
It's a good question. I know that they like his toughness. I know they like that he can tackle a little bit. But, when you're talking about a cornerback position, we're not talking linebacker here. Toughness and tackling are good, and we get mad at corners who don't do that. But at the end of the day, when you hear a scouting report on a guy, you want to hear about his ability to flip his hips and run, and cover, and do all those things. And there just wasn't enough. There wasn't enough of evaluation on that last year outside of practice, right? And in a game as to how he would hold up.
This just came across, so it wasn't something I had planned to ask you, but I just saw this
Again?
and found, not breaking news, but the Vegas odds for Coach of the Year just came out. Would you think Sirianni is in the top 5, bottom 5, or somewhere in the middle?
Probably somewhere in the middle.
Do you realize that Nick Sirianni has the 4th shortest odds to be the Coach of the Year?
Meaning that's likely or unlikely?
He is the 4th most likely guy to win Coach of the Year. Yeah. The favorite is Josh McDaniels.
Who's
Josh McDaniels is the favorite. He's 12-1. Brandon Staley is number 2. He's 14-1. And really, if you look at it from this angle, he's got the 3rd shortest odds because McDaniel and Nathaniel Hackett are both 14-1, 16-1.
Wow. Where's Todd Bowles?
Todd Bowles, 22-1. He's in the middle.
Yeah, that's tough because they've been winning double-digit games for quite a while. So even though he's a new coach, it's not like he's going to get a whole lot of credit if they continue to win. That's pretty interesting there.
Yeah. So I when I saw that, my thought was, that's pretty interesting. So was he viewed around the league as a guy who did a really good job?
Again, when we came back from the combine, Adam Kaplan and I, a lot of the conversation about the Eagles was really not that good. They made the playoffs. They have a lot of holes. They have a lot of work to do. There was some credit for what Nick Sirianni was able to do on the fly, basically ripping up the offensive playbook and starting anew behind the running game. So people were impressed by that, his ability to adjust. But it's not like I heard anybody talking about like the next Bill Walsh or Pete Carroll or anything like that. So I think people just thought he did a good job with what he had to work with.
Yeah, I mean, look, I thought he really struggled, and then he decided, hey, this isn't working. Let's make some adjustments, and I give him credit for.
If he did what he wanted to do, then he would have, or if running the ball like that was what he wanted to do, they would have done that from day one.
And he wouldn't have been hired. Right?
Potentially. Maybe.
Well, if he went in and said, seriously, if he went in and told Jeffrey Lurie, man, we want to pound the rock, we want to be a smash-mouth football team, there's no way he's getting that job.
You're probably right about that, Mike.
Right?
You're probably right.
Seriously.
By the way, where's Brian Daboll on this list of
Brian Daboll is right there. He is it is Nick Sirianni 16-1, Brian Daboll and Doug Peterson are next at 18-1.
Yeah, those are good money bets right there. I mean, teams that have been terrible, have lost a lot of games. So even if they make like 5 or 6 win improvements, right, and that it still only means they win like 7, 8 games, but they look so much better. And I think the Giants have talent, especially on defense. Obviously, they have a big quarterback question, but
I know I'm putting you on the spot, but who do you think is the worst odds?
The worst odds to win it all? Andy Reid?
No, Reid's somewhere in the middle, 25-1. This guy's 50-1. And the team last year was the number 1 seed in the playoffs.
Oh, is it the Vrabel?
Actually,
Not
I'm
Mike
wrong.
Vrabel?
I'm sorry. I totally botched where he was because he was the offensive coordinator for that team. No, he's the new coach in Atlanta. Arthur Smith has the worst odds. So essentially, they think that Atlanta could be
because they're so bad and they're expected to be bad. That's another team that if they I guess that's Vegas telling you that there's just no way, and you know what, that team isn't even going to win 6 to 8 games.
Right. Well, it's Arthur Smith is the worst, then Pete Carroll, then Matt Rule, and Lovie Smith. Those 4 are the worst 4.
That's interesting. I feel like there are some names there you might be able to make some good money on, like a Matt Rule. I mean, honestly, if they address the offensive line and win 9 games, which is possible, they're going to look a whole lot better. They got weapons on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. I like that list, though. I saw it literally just got sent to me not too long ago, and I just opened it, and I said, Sirianni, well, how about that? He's got the third, 16-1. There's a couple guys tied at 14-1, and then there's like 4 guys at 16-1. I said, how about that? Could Nick Sirianni be the NFL Coach of the Year in his second year? It would be did Peterson win the year they won the Super Bowl?
No, didn't Sean McVay win? I thought Sean McVay won it that year.
Okay, McVay won it that year, yeah. So Peterson never actually got one.
Right. Where's Robert Saleh?
Robert Saleh is, let's see. Robert Saleh is, he is 28-1. He's down towards the bottom.
Interesting.
So you got to find a team. You got to find a team that you think can exceed expectations a little bit.
Right.
Cliff Kingsbury's 25-1. Ron Rivera's 25-1. If you think Wentz can help them win the division,
yeah, that's not a bad one.
Something like that. That might be something to throw a couple bucks on. So there you go. That's the coach of the year. All right, let's get back into so Steve Nelson, he signed, just to update the people on our conversation, which kind of asked the question, what would the plan be at corner? 15 and 18. There's going to be corners to take there, right? So would you be pretty surprised if there's corners on the board and they didn't?
Not
like last year.
Totally
they didn't have.
surprised.
Last year they didn't really have a choice of a corner,
right?
Because teams started to take them.
They Horn was gone. They liked J.C. Horn. He was gone. They really liked Surtain. They wanted to trade up to get him. They made some calls. At the end of the day, Denver took him, and they went up to get Devontae Smith.
Right. The choices that they wanted were gone last year. I would imagine there's going to be someone that they like there.
I would imagine.
Now, you're a big guy on best player over need. What if, even if the best player?
Well, it depends on who we're talking about. If it's Jermaine Johnson, a pass rusher, and they feel like Jermaine Johnson has a much higher grade than, say, a Trent McDuffie, you got to take Jermaine Johnson. They certainly need a defensive end, not just for now, but for the future as well. And then there'll be some decent corners in the second round. Wouldn't surprise me if he maybe tried to trade down with that second pick to add some extra second round currency, so that they could address multiple positions there. But no, it wouldn't shock me. But I do think corner, defensive end, and maybe wide receiver. You're looking at one of those three.
Yeah, well, wide receiver, we were seeing the draft in depth a little earlier, is the safety position has a lot of depth to it, and the Eagles have 2 third-round picks. So here's a question regarding – I'll get to the wide receiver stuff later. If Kyle Hamilton started to get to like the 10 area, do the Eagles trade to get a safety? I know what your feeling is on drafting a safety. You don't think it could happen.
It's not my feeling.
Right, no.
Like them doing
about doing it, right. But if he started to fall, is a safety prospect that they might say, you know what, this guy's fallen, maybe this is our time?
You know what? I just don't know that they value it enough to move up. I could be wrong. I think they would love it if some guy like that fell to them at 15, but I don't know if they're willing to.
So they'd be willing to take him at 15, but not move up to get him.
Yeah, I don't know if they're willing to give up compensation to move up for a safety. That would definitely be a first, right? And maybe almost any round 1 through 4 that they traded up and around to get a safety.
If they took the best draft ever, this would be the Alec Boehm moment, right? Like, I effing ate this place. They end up with Kyle Hamilton and Devin Lloyd or Nakobe Dean. Right? They took a safety and a corner and said, I hate this guy. He never drafts a safety or a linebacker. And then they walked out. I love this guy. I did exactly what I wanted him to do.
Yeah, if that happens, then we're truly living in the Matrix, and I'll firmly believe it.
Yeah.
We're all just plugged in.
Okay, wide receiver. I'm not a big fan of taking another one in the first round. I think that I don't mind if they took one in the second, or even I'd prefer the third round. But I think I'm talked myself out of wanting one of these guys in the first round.
Is it because you just don't like them, or like you just don't like the idea of 3 straight years in a row, or like what?
I think that there's I'd be okay with if they got one at 51 or 81 or what's it, 83 or 81, something like that.
Okay, so you like the depth of it. That's fair. If you believe that what you're getting at 18 overall, as compared to what you're going to get in the second
That's
round
the
or
thing.
third. The gulf is not that big.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what I
that
think.
makes sense.
I don't love Olave. I wouldn't be like excited if they took Olave. Like, all right, and
I
then
agree
you
with
get
you
a
on
lot
that.
of these guys, Jeff, that are, Jameson Williams has an ACL problem. I mean, look, now I know it's kind of contradictory that I'm saying I wouldn't mind taking Pickens from Georgia. He had an ACL problem and he had an ACL tear. But I would be more inclined to do that in the third round than I would be
Sure.
at 15 or 18. That's my point on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, and that makes a lot of sense. I can understand that.
All right. Are you writing off an offensive lineman with one of those two picks?
I think it'd be extremely unlikely.
Well,
it's funny because I think they will draft an offensive lineman.
Yeah,
in the
somewhere,
draft, just not in the first round. Yeah.
Yeah, like they do have a propensity to that, but I feel like their depth on the offensive line, that's another thing. They have so much depth on the offensive line. Adam and I had the conversation yesterday about teams calling for Dillard, and I said if you're another team and you're calling for Dillard and they're saying, because Adam is not excited about trading Dillard, right? I don't know. Do you hear the same?
Last year, right, yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah. But if I'm on the phone with Howie Roseman, fine, you don't want to trade Dillard? I'll take Driscoll. I'll take Sayamala. I'll take Herbig. Like, give me somebody. You guys are hoarding all these linemen.
Yeah, seriously. Come on, fork them over. I'm sure people will be calling. Their depth is interesting. They do have depth, but a guy like Dillard is probably not long for the team. A guy like Nate Herbig is only here for a year. And then you're going to have a very quick sort of exodus with Jason Kelsey, who I have to think this will be his last year. And then you really don't know what's going to happen with Isaac Sayamalu because you want Landon Dickerson at one of the other guard spots. And Sayamalu's been hurt a couple of times. LaRaven Clark's only there on a year. So, at this time, while we're talking about line depth, at this time next year, let's say they made no moves in this draft, right? It wouldn't look as deep. And that's what they've been good at is, not just looking for this year, but looking forward on what they have, which is why I do suspect that they'll continue to address the offensive line at some point during the draft. And the only way it's the first round, maybe there's a big run on corners and pass rushers, and you're sitting there at 18, and maybe you've already gotten either a corner, a pass rusher, and at 18, the best player on your board is Tyler Lindenbaum, and he's just, like you said, he's better than the cluster of wide receivers because you think you can get wide receiver in the second round, then I could see that happening.
All right, Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com. You guys, the Greg Cosell Intel show has been fantastic for our listeners out there. If you guys want to check that out, it's on the Inside the Birds platform on their YouTube channel. Go to InsideTheBirds.com, wherever you get your podcasts. The new podcast dropped yesterday.
What's today? Drops tomorrow morning.
The latest one will drop tomorrow morning. And tomorrow, Andrew will be here. Our listeners love when Andrew can get a little dirt on the draft prospects, and we'll talk more draft with him tomorrow. Is there anything else that I missed, Geoff Mosher?
Well, Andrew had a great interview. He's been doing a series for us called Draft Dreams, where he interviews small college prospects who are going to get drafted. He had a great one with Zion McCullum, who played for Sam Houston State. They won the national or the FCS championship. Great. So the kid's 6'3" and ran a 4.3. He's going to get drafted as a cornerback with great length, great size, and he's a great personality. Grew up an Eagles fan in Texas. So that was an interesting part of his story. And, of course, he played for Casey Keeler, who won a couple of national titles with Delaware before going on to Sam Houston. So he's got a pretty good coaching career. He's got to be like one of those, those like the Urban Meyer of the FCS, right? Because I think he has 2 with Delaware, 2 at Sam Houston, or 1 or 2 at Sam Houston State there. He's building up that profile, Casey Keeler.
Yeah, I remember his Rowan days, man. He was
that's right.
building the power when he was at Rowan. By the way, Andre Chachere is back with the Eagles, too. He's a good special teamer.
Very good special teamer. Good find by them.
Is he a corner or he's a safety?
They call him a hybrid player. He played like a nickel/safety kind of role. He's a really good special teams player. If he's on the field on defense, you're not as happy, but if he's your core special teamer, you're thrilled.
Gotcha. All right, Geoff Mosher, I'll talk to you. Have a good week, pal.
You too, my friend. Talk to you soon.
Geoff Mosher, InsideTheBirds.com.